When you think of a horror game, you instinctively think of Dead by Daylight, even if you've never played DBD before. If you're a gamer, chances are you know of Dead by Daylight at the very least. Dead by Daylight has broken many of its own expectations since its release in 2016 to become the standout asymmetrical multiplayer and one of the most popular games in the video gaming space today, almost 9 years later, with no signs of it dying anytime soon. Actually, the opposite is expected, with a FNAF collaboration expected to break even more of the game's already impressive statistics. So why is Dead by Daylight so popular? What makes it stand out from the rest? And how, after almost 9 years, is it still growing? Well, the first place to start with is the core gameplay itself. The whole point of DBD is that there are 4 survivors who complete 5 generators to unlock the opportunity to escape by opening one or both of the 2 exit gates on the map. The killer has to try and kill all 4 survivors before they escape the trial. Sounds pretty simple, right? At its core, DBD is easy for new players to understand because it is simple on the surface. Especially if you're a newer player, you're not going to be overwhelmed with loads of different mechanics that are frustrating and make you want to close the game and never play it again. There's also a lot of variety when it comes to killers in particular, and you can play in different playstyles as well. For example, if you want to play a fast-paced game, then you can go as Blight or Chucky, or if you want a more slow and stealthy approach, you can play as Michael Myers or Ghostface. The thing is in DBD is that there's over 30 killers and close to 50 survivors off the top of my head, as well as over 50 maps. So in Dead by Daylight, there's something for everyone, and you can choose to have a different experience each time you play, as each killer is unique and has their own special ability. In short, there's a lot of things to experience before you get bored, and that variety of options gives you a complete experience. It's not like other games where you have 10 maps, 10 playable characters who all do the same thing, and you end up playing the same sort of maps 5 or 6 times within a 3-hour session. In DBD, that's far less likely because there's just so much variety, so you can sort of explore your own freedom and have your own experience, whereas other games, you feel like you're sort of playing the same thing over and over again, and that causes you to lose interest. When you think about the gaming space, DBD just stands out amongst the crowd. There is just nothing quite like it out there. If you're trying to replicate this experience or look for a similar game to play, there just isn't one. Horror games have come and gone. Think of Friday the 13th, VHS, and now Texas Chainsaw Massacre. All decent games in their own right, but none of them have the longevity or consistency of DBD. And it comes down to one thing really, specifically in the horror space, is that the competition just lacks innovation. Just stay with me here. TCM is bound to the Leatherface license. Friday the 13th, bound to the Jason Voorhees license. And VHS just had so many issues with it that it just never got off the ground. But nonetheless, if we look more at Friday the 13th and TCM, there's only so much they can do with those games, you know. You can only have so many maps, so many characters from that IP, because when you're bound by an IP, you're just very limited. You can't do anything really original because you're going to damage your source material and your IP. And there's only so many characters and environments from the IP, depending on how many films or shows or whatever, how much content there is out there of your IP. And once you run out, you know, how can you keep your game refreshing? And Dead by Daylight is its own universe. There is, you know, no license that is tied to DBD specifically. So it's its own universe. There are so many, the game started DBD as, you know, original characters. You think of the hillbilly, the trapper, you think of Nurse, you think of Wraith, you think of Hag. All of these are original creations. And the fact that it's its own universe is that it just means that DBD can go out and grab licenses and put them into their own universe, as they have done. And that's basically what's allowed DBD to become this museum of horror today. And that's mainly the reason why people play it, is because they see these things online when DBD has a cool license collaboration, like when DBD got Resident Evil. That brought loads of players in because many people have played the Resident Evil games growing up. So they see this Resident Evil content in Dead by Daylight and think, oh, that looks quite interesting, I might play that game. And then they get sucked in by the simple gameplay mechanics and start enjoying DBD. And then the complexity of the game keeps them interested for a long time. And that's also something that I want to touch on. I said earlier that DBD's success, particularly with new players, is its simplicity and how easy it is to understand the actual core gameplay. But what keeps players really here for years, and people who have thousands and over 10,000 hours in the game, the reason that they play this game almost daily and for such a long time each week is the complexity. There are so many killers, so many survivors, and so many maps. And there are also so many perks. There are, I think, close to 300 perks in this game as of recording. There are so many different combinations you can do. Each killer has so many different add-ons. There's so many different offerings you can bring as a survivor, as a killer. You know, there's just so much sort of there for you to use and master. And that sort of understanding the game on a deeper level is what keeps people interested, because once you try one perk, there's another perk for you to try, and then there's another one, and then there's a different killer to try with a different perk. It may be better with this killer or that killer. You know, there's so much experimentation and things to actually master in DBD that it keeps people hooked on it for such a long time. And that's basically why it's the gaming phenomenon that it is today, because the gameplay is simple, but it's also complex. It has a great balance of being simple enough to understand, but complex enough to actually have to master it. And it's not like other games, you know, where it's easy as well. And I think that's what drives people to it as well. It's not an easy game to be good at. If you're good at Call of Duty or Apex Legends or Fortnite, you're good at these sort of typical shooter games, that's not going to translate to Dead by Daylight, because there is nothing out there that simulates this sort of experience that DBD does. So the sort of being a novice on this game and actually having to work hard and understand everything that you do to improve, and even then, you're still not going to know everything, because there's such a vast amount of knowledge for you to actually learn in this game. It means that there's always something new to do and new to learn, and that just keeps people interested because it's just not easy. And if something's easy, you get bored of it quite quickly. And some people can play DBD for years and still not master it because there's just so much there. It's almost like this sense of achievement for people once you actually get good at Dead by Daylight, because it's such a unique case and there's nothing like it. Finally, I sort of want to touch on the license collaborations. Now, I've spoke about it earlier, about there being so much variety, and I've mentioned a couple of big license killers that are in the game. Basically, it's very simple. Every 3 months in Dead by Daylight, a new chapter is released, which typically contains a new killer, new survivor, and a new map. Sometimes there isn't a map or a survivor, but there is always a new killer with each chapter release. Sometimes, more often than not, about 50%, if you look back to the game's history, there is a famous license from the horror genre that joins the game. If you love horror, chances are some of your favourite franchises are in this game. Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, Ghostface, Leatherface, Chucky, Alien, Pinhead. The list goes on. There are so many different recognizable IPs that are already in this game. You can have some really unique matchups in this universe, like Leon from Resident Evil, Lara Croft, Nicolas Cage and Steve Harrington as your 4 survivors going up against Pinhead. I mean, what other game can you simulate that? There is no other game that gives you that sort of experience and such a weird crossover as DBD. And the success of these licenses is not just the names itself, it's that they're adapted very faithfully and similar to the source material, but they also have very fun gameplay aspects to them. So you really feel like you're playing as that character from your favorite movie or video game, but just in a different universe, which is a very surreal and sort of unique feeling to have. And this is what drives people to play the game as well. It just brings so many players in, because when your big collabs are done very well, those fans of those franchises then sort of grow to respect that game and enjoy that game and sort of keep an eye on it, even though they might not play it hardcore like some people. Every time you do a license collaboration, people are going to check on it. And with something like FNAF coming next year, and the amount of people that love the FNAF franchise, that is more than likely going to be adapted really well by DBD. And once that's going to bring so many new players, and the game's just going to keep thriving and growing, and then We'll see what DBD do next. DBD is just a special game. It's a special case in the industry, and it's just fun. And I think that's what makes it stand out. Yes, I mean, you can say there's a lack of competition, which I agree with, and it'd be interesting to see another sort of asymmetrical multiplayer horror game come out, apart from TCM, to challenge DBD. But even so, that game is not going to displace Dead by Daylight. Dead by Daylight is the king of the horror genre, and it will remain so for many years. I mean, we're almost 9 years strong on this game, and there's no signs it's going to slow down. It's probably going to increase in popularity because it's like League of Legends. It's like Fortnite. It just gives you a unique experience that you can't find anywhere else. And that's why DBD is so popular. Thank you for watching.